Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. We don't run a charity here. The cashier's words cut through the quiet night air. The young woman clutched her baby tighter, her eyes reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights of the gas station. Behind her, a motorcycle engine went silent. The clock on the wall showed 2:47 a.m. The highway stretched empty in both directions, a ribbon of darkness punctuated only by the station's flickering sign. The woman's whispered plea hung in the air between them, as meaningless to the cashier as the gentle whimpers of the infant in her arms. "Please," she tried one last time, her voice breaking. Just enough to reach the shelter. The cashier's finger hovered over the phone, ready to call the police. That's when the helmeted figure from the motorcycle stepped in, his movement deliberate and unhurried against the backdrop of desperation. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The woman's jacket was thin, inadequate against the autumn chill that had descended after sunset. Coffee stains marked the front of her shirt, testament to long hours of driving with a baby who demanded attention. Her eyes were red-rimmed, not just from exhaustion, but from tears hastily wiped away when she thought no one was looking. The baby, bundled in what looked like a hand-knitted blanket, couldn't have been more than a few months old. "Your card's declined again," the cashier said, sliding it back across the counter with two fingers as if it might contaminate him. "I've got paying customers to deal with." His gaze swept the empty station, finding no one except the silent motorcyclist by Pump 3, who was methodically removing his gloves one finger at a time, his face still hidden behind the helmet's visor. "I just need enough to reach Millbrook," the woman explained, her voice barely louder than the hum of the refrigerators. "The shelter there?" She stopped when the cashier held up his hand, a gesture that silenced her with practiced efficiency. The baby stirred, sensing the tension, tiny fingers grasping at the air. "Look, lady," the cashier's voice had lost its professional veneer. "I've heard every story. Car broke down, wallet stolen, husband left. Same difference. This isn't a problem I can solve." He tapped the laminated sign on the counter. "No credit, no exceptions." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows as if nature itself was growing impatient with the scene unfolding inside. The motorcyclist reached up and removed his helmet. In the harsh fluorescent light, his beard was more salt than pepper, his eyes tired but alert. No one in the station seemed to recognize that Keanu Reeves had just entered their particular slice of reality. The cashier didn't even look up as Keanu approached the counter, assuming he was just another late-night customer stopping for gas or coffee. The woman had begun gathering her meager belongings, a tattered backpack and a small diaper bag that had seen better days. Her movements were slow, as if each one cost her energy she couldn't spare. The baby made a soft sound, somewhere between a cry and a sigh, a sound that seemed to echo in the empty space. Keanu observed the scene with the quiet intensity he was known for, both on and off screen. His eyes caught the trembling in the woman's hands, the way she whispered reassurances to her child that didn't match the despair in her expression. He saw the cashier's practiced indifference, the kind that comes from seeing too many hard-luck stories walk through the door. And he saw something else. The woman's car parked at the pump, an old sedan with a baby seat secured in the back, and beside it, a small suitcase visible through the window, containing what might be everything she owned in the world. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. How much do you need? Keanu's voice was soft, but carried across the space between them. Both the cashier and the woman turned to look at him, surprised by the interruption. The woman clutched her baby closer, a reflex born of months or years of learned caution around strangers. The cashier straightened his posture slightly, customer service training kicking in at the prospect of an actual sale. "I don't," the woman started, pride briefly overcoming desperation. Then she looked down at her baby and swallowed hard. $30 would get us to Millbrook. She didn't look at Keanu as she said it, her gaze fixed on a point somewhere near his boots. The number hung in the air between them, small enough to be insignificant to some, large enough to be impossible for others. The cashier snorted, a sound halfway between amusement and contempt. "Look, buddy, don't get involved. She's been trying different cards for 10 minutes. None of them work." His tone suggested he'd seen this scenario play out before, many times with the same inevitable conclusion. A security camera in the corner silently recorded everything, its red light blinking steadily in the corner like a mechanical heartbeat. Keanu's eyes found the woman's, and something passed between them. Not pity, but a simple recognition. "I'll cover her gas," he said to the cashier, voice matter of fact. "And mine." He placed his credit card on the counter with the careful precision of someone used to being watched, even when he thought no one was looking. The cashier hesitated, suddenly uncertain. There was something about the motorcyclist that gave him pause. Not recognition, not yet, but an awareness that he was dealing with someone different from his usual late-night traffic. "Whatever," he finally said, taking the card. "Pump number?" "She's at 4. I'm at 3, Keanu replied, then turned to the woman. "Fill it up." It wasn't a question or even a suggestion. It was an assurance. The woman's eyes widened. "I can't accept," she began, but the baby chose that moment to let out a wail, sharp and demanding. The sound cut through her protest, through the artificial hum of the gas station's lights and refrigerators, through the practiced indifference that had filled the space moments before. "Sometimes the universe puts us where we need to be," Keanu said quietly as the cashier processed the payment. His words weren't delivered like a line from a script, but with the weight of something lived and learned. Outside, headlights swept the forecourt as another car pulled in, momentarily illuminating their faces through the window. The exhausted mother, the reluctant cashier, the unexpected savior. The woman rocked her baby gently, her movements automatic, practiced over countless sleepless nights. "Millbrook is 50 miles, she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I said 30 because—" She trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. "Because asking for what you really need is the hardest thing in the world," Keanu finished for her. There was no judgment in his tone, just calm certainty. The cashier returned the card and receipt, sliding them across the counter without making eye contact. He had begun to sense something unusual about the situation, about the man with the kind eyes and familiar voice, but couldn't quite place it. "Pumps are activated," he announced, professional mask firmly back in place. 3 and 4. Then, after a moment's hesitation, "You got kids out there in this weather. You should get them somewhere warm. Fast. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk." Outside, under the harsh fluorescent canopy that pushed back the night, Keanu followed the woman to her car. The baby had settled again, tiny eyes closed against the world that had already proven so difficult. The woman's shoulders were hunched, carrying more than just the weight of her child. She turned to face him, and for the first time he saw her fully. Young, probably not much more than 20, with a determination in her eyes that belied her circumstances. "I don't know how to thank you," she began, her voice steadier now that they were away from the cashier's judgment. "I can pay you back somehow. I have an address at the shelter. I can send money when I—" Keanu held up a hand, gently interrupting her. "That's not why I did it." He gestured toward the gas pump. "Go ahead. Fill it completely." The woman looked at him with uncertainty, then at the pump. Slowly, she placed the baby in the car seat, securing the harness with practiced efficiency despite her exhaustion. As she began to fill her tank, Keanu leaned against his motorcycle, watching the numbers on the pump climb. "The shelter in Millbrook," he said. "You have a place there?" She nodded, eyes fixed on the climbing numbers. "My cousin works there. She said they have a room for us, just until I can—" Her voice trailed off again, lost in the vast landscape of things that needed fixing. "I had a job, an apartment. Then David got sick. Medical bills, missed shifts. You know how it goes." She didn't elaborate further, didn't need to. It was a story as old as time. One piece falls, then another, then everything. "I know about losing people," Keanu said simply. The woman glanced at him, really seeing him for the first time. Recognition flickered across her face, then disbelief, then something like embarrassment. Keanu had seen the progression countless times before. "You're," she started. "Just someone passing through," he finished for her, with the gentle smile that had charmed millions. "Like you." The pump clicked, tank full. She replaced the nozzle with hands that trembled slightly, overwhelmed by the interaction, by the kindness, by the surreal quality of the moment. Inside the station, the cashier was now pressed against the window, phone in hand, realization having finally dawned. Out in the parking lot, the driver of the newly arrived car was doing a double take, nudging his companion and pointing. Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. The woman's expression immediately shifted, a flash of disappointment crossing her features, as if money would somehow diminish what had happened between them, reduce it to a transaction. But instead of cash, he extracted a business card and held it out to her. "My friend runs a foundation," he explained. "They help people who've been knocked down by medical bills. Call this number when you reach Millbrook." The card was simple, no flashy logo or embossed lettering, just a name and a number. "Ask for Helen. Tell her Keanu sent you." The woman took the card with reverence, as if it were made of something more precious than paper. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears that she quickly blinked away. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu replied. "Just remember that sometimes the world isn't as cold as it seems." He glanced at the baby, now sleeping peacefully in the car seat. "And someday, when things are better, do this for someone else." The cashier had come out of the station now, hovering awkwardly by the door. The other customers were not even pretending to fill their tank anymore, phones raised unashamedly to capture the moment. The formerly empty gas station was becoming a stage, and Keanu could feel the weight of eyes upon him. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. The woman tucked the card carefully into her pocket, as if storing away hope itself. "I'm Emily," she said, offering her name like a gift, perhaps the only thing she had left to give. "And this is James." She gestured to the sleeping baby. "It's good to meet you both," Keanu replied, his voice warm but quiet. "You should get going. Beat the morning traffic." He nodded toward the highway, where the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Emily hesitated, seemingly torn between the need to leave and the desire to somehow memorialize this moment. "I won't forget this," she finally said, her voice steadier than it had been all night. "Not ever." She climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine, and looked back at him one last time through the open window. The expression on her face was complex, gratitude certainly, but also something more profound, a renewed belief in possibility. Keanu raised a hand in farewell as Emily's car pulled away, its taillights receding into the darkness. He turned back to his motorcycle, aware of the small crowd that had gathered, the cashier, the other customers, all watching him with expressions ranging from awe to disbelief. Someone called his name. Another asked for a selfie. With practiced grace, he acknowledged them with a nod but continued preparing to leave. The cashier approached, his earlier indifference replaced by an awkward mixture of embarrassment and excitement. "I didn't realize," he began, but seemed unsure how to finish the sentence. "Didn't realize you were famous. Didn't realize you were watching. Didn't realize my callousness had an audience." Keanu simply nodded, neither absolving the man nor condemning him. "You did that woman a solid," the cashier continued, finding his voice. "Not many would have stepped up like that." He seemed to be searching for redemption in Keanu's eyes, or perhaps just a story to tell his friends later. "We don't have to save the whole world," Keanu said, securing his helmet. "Sometimes we just need to stop one person from breaking." He started his motorcycle, the engine's rumble cutting through the night air. "That's enough." With those words, he pulled away from the gas station, following the same road Emily had taken, though his destination was somewhere else entirely. Behind him, phones captured his departure, social media already lighting up with the encounter. By morning, the story would spread across the internet. Keanu Reeves, helping a stranded mother in the middle of nowhere. But that wasn't why he'd done it. As the highway stretched before him, he thought of Emily and James, heading toward a new beginning. In a world that often felt designed to break you, sometimes all it took was one person refusing to look away. One small act of kindness to remind us that the darkness isn't permanent, and that even on the loneliest roads, we're never truly alone. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.